Okay, this is Cameron from Chaos. I wanted to show the installation on a Walser Romanian AK-47 and also a Sega 762 version. I'm not really great at this kind of stuff. I'm a whole lot better at designing and building this stuff, but I'm going to do my best to get through this. I'm not going to go over Allen wrench sizes and all that. You can find that either on our website or just pick out it's Allen wrenches. It's just Allen screws, so no big deal. Anyway, the first thing I know that people are going to be wondering now, obviously both these weapons have already had these rails on them because they're both test weapons. But the bottom line is people are going to, first thing they're going to come across is they're going to need to remove this pin that is in the rear sight block. And we did send instructions with that, but I also wanted to show people that these things remove so easily it's not even funny. If you take a drill bit around 3/8 of an inch, you get right in the center of these pins. Now this one obviously has already been removed, but if you get right in the middle of that, it's like a rivet almost. You just drilled right down in the center, but you just want to drill till you almost have removed the edge of this rivet, and then take a punch and punch it on through, and you won't even get into this rear sight block. So that I wanted to point out right off the bat, and because a lot of people are going to think it's real difficult. It's not. They're so easy to remove. It's not even funny. Anyway, this is a Walser AK-47. So I'm going to go ahead and start with it. I'm not going to have to file any rear keys or anything because, and you may have to because these things vary in the way that they're bent. But we're working on trying to get it to where you don't have to even do that. But most of them you can drive them in, or they'll just slip right in. But if you have to, you may have to file a little bit off the side of the key and possibly a little bit of the top of the key. You can take the key off the rail and do that as a removable key if you don't want to hit if you don't want to take the chance of bumping your rail or aesthetically messing up the rail, and you just want to work on the key. And then you can just touch the key back up with there's all kinds of stuff you can touch it up with, but I'll leave that up to you. But anyway, taking a quick look at this rail, one of the things I want to point out, and I just bring the camera up here to where I'm actually at, right in this area, please. One of the things I want to point out is that you're going to see these funny little tabs here that I guarantee you've never seen before. I'm already getting calls on this, how to take this rail apart. I want to stop right there and I want to rotate this rail over, and I want to point out what we've already pointed out on our instruction sheets and on our website. Do not adjust these 4 screws. Do not think those screws are holding this top rail onto this bottom rail, because they're not. This is a brand new system, and it is not held together by bolts at all, screws of any kind. It's held together with a patent and pending feature that we have designed, which is these locking tabs with these pull pins in here. These are actually locating screws for the top rail, and they're also tuning screws. They serve 2 functions. They locate the rail in an absolute position where you cannot get any movement out of it, and they also adjust the rail this way and lock it so you can't get any movement out of it that way. Now, when you're first looking at this rail, when it comes to you, depending on what version of weapon you're trying to put it on, you may get, like if it's a standard AK, you're going to get it like this. It should have a front screw here. You're going to have these 2 screws that land against the barrel, and you're going to have the short key like this. And you're going to, if you have the 762, you're liable to get front hardware like this with a longer key that has a hole through the bottom of it. So depending on the variation of what you're ordering, they're going to be a little different than possibly from what this display is right here, but very close overall. But the function of this will be absolutely the same on every platform, regardless. Anyway, to take this apart, you have to simulate your fingers being the rear sight block, and you need to push in here because that's what has to be supported. And you push these tabs in, and then pull them back to the next slot, locking slot in the reverse position. Now, once that's done, you can pop this apart. With this apart is a very simple install. You're going on your AK-47. You're going to have to go ahead and remove your bolt, and the only reason you have to remove your bolt is because you need to get the gas tube up and out of the way to flip this little tab up. Now with that done, all you have to do is take this, and this is where it gets a little tricky, not too bad, but if you notice the bottom of your rear gas block is radius. take that area, pushing this forward, take that area and slide these two tabs right up into that area. Then you can just push that right on up into the receiver. I forgot to take my screw out. That's how goofy I'm being. Got a million things going today. Trying to squeeze this thing in with everything else. Anyway, then you can slide your bracket up on it, lock your bracket in place. I hope the camera's staying in view. Is it staying in view from where you're at? Okay. Then go ahead and put your screw in here. Now you're not going to be able to put your cleaning rod in any of these setups. So the cleaning rod will not work with this rail. If that's an issue, then you're going to have to go with a different rail. But for what this rail does, I wouldn't imagine anybody wanting to keep the cleaning rod over the ability to actually be able to strip this thing down and get to the more needed components to clean. Let's see here. I'm just going to tighten this up real quick here. But I don't tighten this all the way up. What you want to do is you want to just snug that front screw and then go ahead and tighten your barrel screws. Go ahead and just tighten it right on up against there. And you don't want to get crazy with them. Just snug them good. They're gonna bite into your barrel a little bit. They're not gonna get crazy. And without doing any other tightening, you're not moving this thing already. It is rock solid. But I go ahead, give it a little bit more tightening on that. Now, at this point, go ahead, stick your gas tube back in there. Go ahead and reassemble your weapon at this point. It's not going to hurt anything. Now, to put this front back on, it was tuned with the vents facing backward. You can tune it with the other direction. It is ambidextrous, but it has to be tuned for it. Make sure we got it sitting down in there. If it is not sitting down in there, you cannot slide these forward. Now with it, and you'll hear it lock in. You'll see it lock in. But you see they slide a lot better now that they're resting against the rear sight block. Now that's the front rail completely installed. No movement. It is rock solid. The rear section is just as easy. Flip your side up. Put the hinge in its position. Grab your hinge pin. Now, since these are new, they're going to be a little tight, which is good. Once you got that in place, you can see how snug this is. This is slap that down, and you're more likely you're going to be in position to start with. I've already set these screws, so I know that this one is. But generally, what you would do is you would set the top screw, file the back, file the bottom of this hole right here, as you can see I have done with a small file. You just get in here. Now you don't want to get crazy with it. You just file in the position. You want to file kind of parallel with the rail itself, right through there like that. Snap it into place, and then use this screw to jack the rail up until you get a good sight plane across here. Once you've done that, take these screws and bring them in until they touch on both sides, and then back one off at a time. Put blue Loctite on it, bring them back in until they touch. Back this one off, put blue Loctite on it, bring it back down until it touches, and you're done. That's an AK. This is the Walser AK-47 setup, and this one here is fully installed and done. Going to the Sega, same thing. You're going to be facing pretty much the same thing. You got a little bit of different hardware. You got our bracket system that we developed. It's a split bracket system. Since there's no bracket already on the Sega or on the 762 Sega 762, so what we have is we have a split bracket system that we developed. and we've been using these now for a couple of years. Everybody seems to like them. If you get a Sega that does not, 762 that does not have these slots, it's no big deal. Just simply take a file or a Dremel or something and just grind those out of there, and you're up and ready to rock. That's not what's locating this rail this way anyway. The key is. So I don't have this one ready to go. So anyway, there's going to be a few differences. You've got a screw in the back of this key. You don't have that in the Wasser AK because it has a retaining bracket with a lock on it that locks the barrel, keeps it from sliding forward. Here, even though the screws are dug into the barrel on the setup, you're probably not going to slide forward anyway, but I overkill everything that I do. If something needs 10%, I give it usually 30 or 40%. That's just how I'm built. Anyway, I like things to be true battlefield ready. Again, to get these apart, and this is going to be probably where people have the biggest problem, is that you're going to have to put your fingers in here so that you can depress these tabs. Now these tabs are split. They're a split tab. This is spring steel, and there's a little locking tab that goes right in the groove here, in the forward position, and then in the rear position. Now there is an extension on here that keeps this from traveling past its point, but with it off the weapon, it has nothing to hit against. So when you move these back, when you first move these back, simulate the rear sight block being there with your fingers, pull in, and then or push in and then pull back at the same time. Now they can, if they go past the back like that, no big deal, because they're locked inside here with pins anyway. These pins right here keep these pins locked in. Again, like I stated earlier, do not mess with these tuning screws right here at all. They'll be factory set. The only time you need to mess with those is after years of wear. You need to adjust it out. Those locating screws will keep this thing super tight like brand new for many, many years. Anyway, with this apart, I'll show you how this goes on a Sega 762. We're going to do the same thing, well, pretty close same thing here. I'm going to bring it up to the radius area of the rear sight block, and I'm going to slide that up on there. Now that just helps feed that up on there. If you bring it over here and try to feed it up, you're not going to have a very good chance unless you spread them apart with my finger. But with it being right there at that radius, you just slide it right up on there, and you're right in there, just that quick. Now, I'm going to put my bolt in here, my screw I mean. I'm not going to tighten down anything just tight yet. Just getting things where they need to be. Alright, well, we had a little bit of malfunction in here with the camera, so we're back up and running again. But anyway, I want to show you a quick install on the Sega 762. It's going to be pretty much like what you've seen on the Wasser, just a couple little variations, a couple little differences. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to try not to do it all the time I talk. You'll want to remove this front bracket. It comes with it already on it. It also comes with a screw here in this key. If you'll notice, the key is different from the Wasser, and you have this front bracket set up for the 762. So the best way to install this, easiest way to install this bracket setup here, is to take your gas tube off. Otherwise it's in your way while you're trying to get this done. Anyway, to pull this apart, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to simulate the rear sight block with your fingers in between like this. You get it pulled back and out of the way to where you can actually pull the rail apart, and you're ready to go. We're going to break this down here real quick. Now that tube pops right out, but it's a little bit more stubborn going back in. Again, you'll want to use the radius right here of the rear sight block. Slide that in to the receiver. Go ahead and put your screw here in the back. Kind of snug it down by hand. You'll want to take your front assembly here apart. with the sling area in front, you want to go ahead and put this section behind it. Now, if you do have a Sega that does not have these slots in the barrel where these line up, that's fine. Just take a Dremel, grind these out, it still works just the same. Your key is what's actually locating the rail this way anyway. So we'll go ahead and put this together. They're small screws, so they're a little bit fidgety at first to handle if you got big fumbling fingers like I do. There we go. Took me a second to get my fingers in gear. Once you got one of them lined up, the other one's going to fall in pretty quick, pretty easy. Taking this screw, going into your rail. Now this bracket is going to keep everything stabilized on the front of the rail. That's the whole purpose for it, for those that aren't real familiar with this setup. Now what you have is you have two barrel screws, tightening screws on the bottom. Now that's these here in center. Do not adjust these four tuning screws as it's shown in the instructions. Do not mess with those. Those are already factory set. If you have to adjust those, give us a call and we can explain the adjustment on those a little bit better than we can in paperwork. They're a little bit fine-tuned, so it takes a little bit of knowledge to tune them in and get them, everything is sliding. Now that is super rigid, just with tightening that up like that without getting real crazy on anything. Now I'm going to pull out a couple Allen wrenches. This is a 5/32 here in the front. Snug that down. And I believe it's a 3/32 on the others. Yeah. You want to snug these up. You can also put blue Loctite on these. I'm not doing it for this particular case because I'm just displaying how to install it, but I would recommend blue Loctite on this stuff. Anyway, now you're ready to go ahead and put the top rail, the front top rail on. So you want to put your gas tube back on now that you've got your bracket on. Like I said, these can be a little fidgety because they're spring loaded. We'll go ahead and reassemble the bolt and all that jazz. Just to kind of get it out of the way, I'm going to need to just put that together anyway. Carry on. Now you can install the front top. Making sure it's setting down in there. The pins will just slide right forward and lock right into place. Now, you're not moving this thing. It's done. It's in place. Now, if you need to take it back off, you just pull your pins, slide them back, same way. You just twist them in. You just push these in. They're a split spring. You just push them in. Push on the front section till it locks. Same way here. Push in till it comes back and locks in. Same way going forward. I'm going to go until it locks in. Same way here. It'll lock in. You'll hear it lock in. Front's all assembled. There's no movement on this rail whatsoever. The back side is going to be the same. You're going to have to remove this pin from your rear sight block that holds your gas tube in. And again, you'll use a drill, and you'll want to come down in there. And this is very much basically a rivet because they just rivet that. They just press those edges over, form them over. So you want to drill right down in the center of that, but not very aggressively. You just want to remove the edge until you're just starting to get onto this block, and then just tap this thing the rest of the way out. And as you can see, just drilling it, you hardly even remove or touch any metal on the rear sight block at all. Now taking your rear section, flip your side up, pull your hinge pin out, slide this on, sticking your hinge pin back through. Lock it into place. Now these are going to be a little bit tight because they're brand new. Lock it into place. This screw here would already be sticking. You would have this screw sticking out. Actually, I haven't installed this one on here, so that's just how easily they go on there right from the word go. I haven't even adjusted this one yet. Hasn't even been filed on the hole yet, so that just tells you right there how quickly these install and how close they are to the factory settings of this weapon for Segas. And but what you want to do, same as the Walser, you'll want to bring this screw down here until it touches, and it's just starting to touch right there. If this button won't pop out, it's probably because you've got this screw already adjusted down, or this hole on the bottom, this plate here, needs to be filed a little bit to where it's opened up on this hole, same as the Walser. Again, you'll want to take and adjust the side screws, the adjustment screws here on the side. That's with a 1/16 of an inch Allen wrench until they just touch. And these are nylon tip screws. And then you'll want to back these off. Once you get all your settings done, you'll want to back these off one at a time, Loctite them and put them back in one at a time so you remain in the same place. And after that, you're done. You're locked in, you're ready to go. This is a very rock solid setup. You're not getting any movement out of this anywhere. And that's an install on 762 Sega. Thank you very much.